And joining us now to talk more about this, we have Atty. Nepomuceno Malaluan, convener of the Right to Know, Right Now Coalition. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Yes, good morning to you, Gretchen, and to all your viewers.
Okay, Attorney, for the benefit of everybody watching, tell us a little bit about your group, Right to Know, Right Now. What do you do, and who are you composed of?
Yes, Right to Know Right Now Coalition is a network of civil society organizations, academics, including business, the church, and we have been in existence since as early as 2002. And we have been advocating for the passage of the Freedom of Information Law. But at the same time, we are also actively engaged in what we call FOI practice, which means what the Constitution and existing rules give us, even in the absence of an FOI law. We actively exercise that right by requesting for information and using them in support of our advocacies of our members. The Right to Know Right Now Coalition is co-convened by myself, Ms. Malu Mangahas, and Ms. Joy Chavez.
Is the PCIJ a part of this coalition?
Yes, PCIJ is an organizational member of this coalition.
The Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, because I saw several reports where the coalition was cited. Going now to the main topic, which is the Office of the Ombudsman relaxing rules around the release of SALNs, reversing the decision of the predecessor, Samuel Martires, requiring a court order and a notarized consent from the officials concerned. This time now, pwede na, no? How does this change the game for your group?
Well, the first is we'd like to establish that the baseline. And the baseline is that the Constitution, the law, and the ethical principles in public service require the submission and disclosure of the statement of assets and liabilities. Under the Constitution, Article 2, Section 28, this is included in the state policy of full disclosure of all its transactions involving public interest. And very specifically, yung Article 11, Section 17 of the Constitution requires the submissions and names actually the highest officials of the land to submit and make available the SALNs. And not only that, Republic Act 6713 provides very detailed rules on the submission and the disclosure of SALNs. And it is not just a legal requirement. It is based on very clear ethical principles as discussed or deliberated in the CONCOM. Sabi ng mga Constitutional Commission and framers of the Constitution, this is a mandate on the state to be accountable by following a policy of full disclosure. Public officials should make their statements or their SALNs available for public scrutiny and not merely stored in archives. And those who hold the greatest power must lead by example. So based on that, very clearly, the former memorandum circular of former Ombudsman Martires was in clear violation of the Constitution and the law. And for that reason, we welcome the correction made by the newly appointed Ombudsman Remulla, opening this for public access. However, one point with that is we are apprehensive of some of the procedural constraints that are still imposed under these new guidelines.
Which I would like to talk about. This has its caveats. In particular, there is a need for journalists to submit a copy of their report within 5 days of publication to the Office of the Ombudsman. At pwedeng pagbawalan if used for commercial purposes, linked to a pending case to influence or harass others. It is contrary to law, morals, or public policy, and tied to extortion or security threats. What will be the challenge with that?
Well, the first hurdle is unlike in an ordinary FOI request that you can submit online and just put a signed request. Ito you have to go personally and place your request under oath before an ombudsman officer. So, Gretchen, you cannot just simply request it. You have to go there personally and place your request under oath. And then, as you mentioned, maraming possible grounds for denial that is not found in the law, but they may be very widely or discretionarily imposed. You have read them. And finally, if you make any report, including probably a broadcast reportage, you have to provide the link to them. And meron din nakalagay dyan na kung hindi magtugma yung sinabi mo na purposes, for example, that might be taken against you and could exclude you from future access to SALN. So we believe that many of these procedural restrictions are, for one, they are not consistent with the ethical principles that is the basis for the constitutional provisions and the law. And secondly, they are an overextension of what is provided under Republic Act 6713.
In effect, nagkakaroon ng another layer here of supervision from the Office of the Ombudsman. Although, ang sabi nila, their goal here is information sharing para maging sumbungan sila ng bayan.
The practice, baka hindi pa nga lang sa practice, this can already have a chilling effect on the use of SALNs. But let me just also share with you, Gretchen, that the Right to Know Right Now Coalition just recently issued a challenge for disclosure of SALNs on a voluntary basis. You know, these rules does not prescribe or does not preclude our officials of the land voluntarily disclosing their statement of assets and liabilities. For one, they retain a copy for themselves. They have a copy readily accessible within their mother units, aside from the legally instituted repositories of this of their SALNs. And we wrote 316 high officials of the land, from the president, the vice president, the cabinet, members of Congress and the Senate, as well as DPWH secretary, undersecretaries, assistant secretary, and regional directors. And we requested for them to make available their SALNs, and we will provide a link so that the public will see them. And out of the 316, after 18 days have passed, we only received response from 13 individuals, and of those responses, only 5 members of Congress provided the information. So that's 4.1% response, of which of total 1.6% were positive response. And to us, this is indicative of the ethical principles behind or underlying SALN's requirement having not been really internalized in the public service. And we really link this with what is happening now in the country. Our leaders of the land are not prepared to meet the requirements of accountability in public service through such a demonstration of the commitment, Gretchen.
And what we're talking about now, actually, which is under the Office of the Ombudsman, there are only several officials or several offices under their jurisdiction. Tama ba na ang sakop lang nito ay ang presidente, ang vice-presidente at constitutional officials, which includes COA, which includes ano pa ba yung COMELEC, tama po ba?
Yes, that's correct.
Ang Supreme Court hindi po
Hindi kasama. Ang Supreme Court is its own custodian of its SALNs. Senate and the House are its own custodian. And for the lower rank, for the cabinet members, it is the Office of the President. And for lower ranking officials, it is the Civil Service Commission. So those are different hurdles altogether right now, the matters of privacy and data privacy, in our experience, is being used quite extensively as an imposition for the disclosure of some of this. So the SALNs has been in existence for since the 1987 Constitution and after passage of RA 6713. But in practice, and like many other practices, including for this infrastructure mess where there are so many legal safeguards from in the entire budget cycle, are all distorted in practice.
So, ang hawak-hawak lang po na SALN nitong Office of the Ombudsman, bukod nga sa President, Vice President, we have the Civil Service Commission, we have the Commission on Audit.
And their own. And their own.
And their own, yeah. Commission on Elections, Commission on Human Rights, Office of the Ombudsman, Commission on Appointments, and Judicial and Bar Council. Tama po ba? Yun lang po.
Yes, under RA 6713, it provides for the various repositories of assets and liabilities. For example, President, Vice President, constitutional officials, and the National Office of the Ombudsman, yung senators and congressmen with the secretaries of the Senate and the House of Representatives respectively, justices with the clerk of court of the Supreme Court, judges with the court administrator, and so on. Regional and local officials, employees of elected officials are with the deputy ombudsman and their respective regions. So there are other officials that are with the deputy ombudsman at the regional level.
Kaya po pala nagre-rejoice po atong ating mga senador at congressmen dahil sa hindi sila sakop nito. Pero tell us a little bit about your group's experience on getting SALNs. Kung hindi po pala sakop ng Office of the Ombudsman, itong Senado at itong Congress at yung iba pang mga offices, Office of the local officials, etc. How difficult has it been to get SALNs released by the other SALN custodians that you mentioned?
Well, mahirap kumuha ng mga SALNs. If I recall correctly, sa Kongreso ay the standard of Ombudsman Martires of a consent on the part of the filer was there. In fact, the rules in the Supreme Court, historically, I know that there have been requests and memoranda filed with the Supreme Court, and there are also procedural restrictions similar to this. And of course, the memorandum of Ombudsman Martires has completely blocked the access to. We've not seen a SALN of a president or a vice president for quite some time.
Oo, pero yung Senado, did they follow suit? Kasi iba po ito di ba? Yung Secretary of the Senate ang may hawak po ng mga SALN. Ginaya po ba nila yung kalakaran doon ng ombudsman? Well,
no, not. I think the ombudsman's previous memorandum circular is the most restrictive of all. But there are also procedural guidelines by the different custodians. So sa CSC, we're able to get the information or the SALNs. In truth, we will be testing again now because we are launching a SALN tracker. And we started, as I mentioned, with an appeal for a voluntary submission of the highest officials, but we will also be testing again the procedures for each of these custodians.
Kanino po pinakamadali kumuha ng SALN? Which office po?
Well, sa CSC, we have been, because the CSC is
Civil
also
Service Commission. Okay.
Officials.
And now in your second effort or the nth effort, kaninong SALN po ang i-request po ng inyong grupo? Kasi we know that we didn't have eyes on these SALNs mainly from 2016 up until this point. Whose SALN will you try to access?
Well, we will follow at the first instance yung aming 316 requests for voluntary uh, release. So that includes the President, the Vice President, the 25 cabinet members, 14 undersecretaries and assistant secretaries of the DPWH, and their 17 regional directors. But aside from this voluntary request, we will also be filing based on the procedure as required with the repositories of their SALN. So those are all going to be put in the SALN tracker. Even then, meron ng issue dyan kaagad Gretchen, because it has now become unclear whether a republication, if we get access to them and put them in our tracker, if that is something that will be allowed. Of course, our position is that we should be free to republish these SALNs for general public
I want to go to the I want to go to the paper that you released, which is entitled "Conflict of Interest at COA's Doorstep." You referred to COA Commissioner Mario Lipana. Will you be asking for his SALN? And what prompted you to take a look at this case? This was already mentioned in several hearings, also mentioned by Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto in his State of the City address. Ano po nakikita nyo dito sa kanyang kaso?
Well, ganito, nakita natin, as you mentioned in several hearings, that his wife is being linked to a construction company, that is the Olympus Mining Builders Group Philippines Corporation. Pero yung mga unang datos ay nakabatay lamang doon sa sumbong sa Pangulo. So they were focused on flood control projects. So what we did was to look at how many contracts Olympus Mining had, particularly with DPWH, and we found that's from 2022 to 2025, it had on its own 13 contracts worth 1.04 billion, not just flood control projects, but road projects, street lighting, and so on. And we also found out that it had several other contracts in joint venture with Lebron Construction. In all, in joint venture, there were 9 contracts amounting to 849 million. So, itong company ni Miss Marilu Laurio or Miss Marilu Laurio Lauro Lipana has a combined contract of 1.89 billion with DPWH. Now, its joint venture partner, itong Lebron Corporation, had a contract for the construction of COA's own building in 2021 worth nearly $1 billion. And Lebron Construction, what we found out, is not only a joint venture partner, not just a commercial partnership, but itong mga incorporators na to ay kasama ng isa pang korporasyon where Mrs. Lipana was identified as a president. It is a mining company, and among those was the sole proprietor of Lebron Construction. So, 2 points here. The rules on conflict of interest is very clear, and there is conflict of interest when you are a sitting commissioner of the audit, because it audits all agencies, including the DPWH. But not only that, there is a construction involving your own institution, the COA building, almost $1 billion, with a company with a related interest. And by the way, there is also an allegation of direct intervention, similar to the sponsorship of congressmen, in the affidavits of Mr. Alcantara, the DPWH former district engineer. and also with the Undersecretary Bernardo. So we believe that the conflict of interest, as the facts currently show, requires our oversight and investigatory agencies, including ICI, Ombudsman, to look into this matter, and COA itself, as an
As an
institution
organization.
that must keep its integrity, and we submitted the report to these bodies.
Oh, and napapatanong nga po ang mga tao, no? How could these officials get away with such a glaring conflict of interest kung asawa po niya mismo yung nakikipagkontrata with DPWH? Hindi po ba parang yun po ay kitang-kita na, hindi na tinatago, wala nang divestment na nangyayari? And so by the mere facts here that you just mentioned, ito po ay violation of law, clear violation of law already, and is it solid enough to bring before the Ombudsman and also Congress, because the commissioner is an impeachable official, right?
Yes, that is correct. And so now we have a system, Gretchen. The tragedy of all of this is that the system of accountability at all levels of the budget cycle, from budget preparation, authorization or appropriation, execution in the procurement and so on, and accountability with COA are all compromised. And so, in truth, saan tayo pupunta? You will have an investigation and impeachment process by pardon being direct about it, also a tainted Congress.
So will you try to get the SALN of the commissioner and
Yes.
also the other politicians that are linked to construction companies?
Medyo malaki na yung workload natin din, Gretchen, because continuing, that report that you mentioned is already the 5th of a series. There's a 6th, actually, a companion study to this, and we're still doing these researches along with, dun muna tayo sa 316, but of course, yung constitutional commissions, in light of this report that we produced, we will also ask for their SALNs.
So have you submitted this report to the Office of the Ombudsman already? Yung kay
Yes,
Commissioner
we
Lipana?
submitted it to the ICI. We submitted
Okay.
it to the Commission on Audit itself, to the Office of the Ombudsman. We also submitted this to the Securities and Exchange Commission, because some of these are corporate entities making submissions to the SEC. At sa totoo lang, yung SEC ay napakahirap kumuha ng dokumento, ang mahal. Dun lang sa articles of incorporation at doing research like this, sometimes you need to look at various corporations. Yun palang articles of incorporation, I think it's 1,200 pesos to get access to that. And then iba pa yung fees for the financial statements that are submitted. Now, these are public records that are imbued with public interest and must be made open. So in our submission, we also requested that we be allowed to access these corporate documents and submissions, which are regulatory submissions, at a reduced cost.
Yung SALN din po, kayo rin po magbabayad niyan, ano? Magkano po kaya? Do you have any idea how much?
Hindi naman mahal. They follow usually the reimbursement for the cost of reproduction. And sometimes digital copies are also provided.
There are, as we discussed, several challenges still to the memorandum of the new ombudsman when it comes to the release of SALNs, particularly the submission to the office before or within 5 days of release or publication. But this is definitely a step back in the right direction, as you mentioned, given the public's right to know, which is the motto of your group, the Right to Know, Right Now Coalition. Thank you so much for your work, and we hope things get easier for you along the way as you do the public a service that's badly needed. We have Attorney Nepomuceno Malaluan, convener of the Right to Know, Right Now Coalition. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and to help us understand how this affects the investigations moving forward. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din sa iyo, Gretchen, and good morning.